everybody. Okay, so hello everybody. Good evening. Welcome to the Champaign Public Library. We are so glad to have you here with us tonight for this special small business panel event. So you want to start a business? In celebration of National Small Business Week. My name is Lauren Gramley. I'm the business specialist here at the library. Our launch at the library business services include free workshops, powerful online tools, and one-on-one consultations for starting or growing your business. We are presenting tonight's small business panel in partnership with the Champaign Center Partnership, and I would like to welcome Jenna Manalakis, Executive Director of the Champaign Center Partnership, up here to the podium, just to say a few words about the CCP and National Small Business Week. Jenna?
Hello, I'm Jenna Manalakis, and I am the Executive Director of Champaign Center Partnership. Champaign Center Partnership is a nonprofit business membership organization. Our mission is to foster a more vibrant, inviting, and active Champaign through the downtown, midtown, and campus town by strengthening our local businesses and building community. As we kick off National Small Business Week, it's important to recognize the vital role that the small businesses play in our economy. They are the backbone, creating jobs, offering unique goods and services, and adding character to our neighborhoods. When we choose to shop locally, our support reverberates throughout the community. Our dollars stay local, benefiting our neighbors and friends who own and operate these businesses. So I urge you all to join me this week and beyond in making a conscious effort to shop locally. Explore our local shops, restaurants, and events like the Downtown Wine Walk we have this week on Saturday, May 4th from 2 to 6. Some of our lovely panelists are out also doing it. So yeah, you can get tickets over there on that table. Thank you all for your support and belief in the power of community. Together, let's continue to build a vibrant and thriving Champaign. Thank you.
Thank you, Jenna. All right, so now let me briefly introduce tonight's panelists, because they're who we are here for. Kayla Brown is the owner of Fire Doll Studio in downtown Champaign. While it started as a fun holiday side hustle in the kitchen of a studio apartment in 2011, Brown has grown Fire Doll into a bustling brick-and-mortar candle-making studio and independent brand. Not only does the business offer candle-making events for the community at large, but is also a thriving nationwide online retailer, wholesaler, and subscription box service provider. Fire Doll Studio was recent recipient of a Champaign County Tourism Impact Award, Women's Net Distinguished Business Award, Illinois MADE Program Inductee, and Brown herself was a member of Central Illinois Business's 40 Under 40 class of 2022. Dr. Mila Thomas Fuller is the owner and operator of Nothing Bundt Cakes in Champaign, Illinois, which opened July 2020. Prior to opening her bakery, she served as the interim director and assistant director of online learning for UIUC's College of Education. Dr. Fuller has served as president of the Champaign-Urbana Schools Foundation, president of the Champaign-Urbana chapter of Delta Sigma Theta sorority, and is currently serving as president of the Greater Champaign-Urbana chapter of Jack and Jill of America. Mickie Phetchareune, is the owner of Sticky Rice, a Thai Lao restaurant offering comfort Asian food in downtown Champaign. Mickie and her family opened Sticky Rice in 2018 after noticing the lack of homey Asian cuisine in downtown. Mickie and her family also grow their own produce at their 9-acre farm, Green G Farm in Villa Grove, and produce from their farm is featured on the Sticky Rice menu when in season. Armando Sandoval is the owner of Maize Mexican Grill, which opened in its original location on the corner of Green and First Streets in 2011. Maize currently has 3 brick-and-mortar locations, although I know one is closing soon, unfortunately, around Champaign-Urbana, and a food truck. Originally from Mexico, Armando worked for 18 years at his family's restaurants in Chicago before deciding to open his own restaurant specializing in traditional Mexican food. At Maize, all food is made in-house, including their organic corn tortillas, proudly made with corn produced by the Maize team. Jenny Shima owns The Literary, an independent bookstore, brunch restaurant, bar, and cafe in downtown Champaign. She is in love with building community and helping people. She works to make the literary a driver of both. Previously, Jenny was the founder of a software startup and a dancing Bugs Bunny at Six Flags. So let's give a big round of applause for all of our panelists. Okay, so now we're going to jump into tonight's panel discussion, since you're all here to hear these amazing people and not me. And I strongly believe that the best business knowledge comes from people who have actually started a business. I will ask the panelists a series of questions regarding their entrepreneurial journeys, their challenges, strategies, and some business insights. We will then have some time for questions from the audience at the end, so please hold your questions until the end, but I promise we will have time for your questions. Okay, so I'm going to get started. I'm going to ask the first question. Now, this question is going to be for everybody, so I'm going to ask it. You'll each have an opportunity to answer. Okay, so the first question, the burning question for everyone. Tell us your story. What inspired you to start your small business, and what did your startup journey look like? And we'll go ahead and start with Kayla and work our way down.
This is a story that I've told many times, and I don't know that I still believe it myself. But so Fire Doll was something I started in my kitchen during nursing school. I really needed a creative outlet while I was studying, and if anyone's been through a program like that, you know how like soul-sucking it can be. So it's nice to have a creative outlet. And candles, I have asthma and I love candles, and I just could not find commercial candles that I could burn that did not irritate my airway. So I thought I'll just make it myself. I'll know exactly what's in it. That's the old school way of doing that. And so I fell in love with the process of making candles, and I just kind of turned into a little holiday side hustle that I kept going for, about 10 years. And then when the pandemic hit, I was working as a nurse. I was teaching music full time, and I lost both of those opportunities. And I, kind of found myself stuck in the middle of this pandemic with no jobs. And what am I going to do? How do you make bills? How do you make bills? How do you make ends meet? And so I spent that summer mowing yards. Because why not? I'd get up at 7 in the morning and get my mower out and go for a whole summer. I did that. I think I probably mowed some folks in this room's yards. But it got cold out. The summer ended and it got cold, and I thought, well, now what am I going to do? So I kind of all I had left were these candles, and it was something that normally during a standard year I would be going to a market and selling them, but there were no markets. So I had to get creative. So I started a website. I got a tiny little 60 square foot studio in the Lincoln building in downtown Champaign, and got a computer in there and a pouring table, and I started a website and started doing curbside candles. So I did that out of the Lincoln building for almost a year. And then when the world kind of opened back up, kind of late spring of the following year, I had people tapping on the door and asking if there was a candle store in there. And I'm like, there's no candle store in here. And then my landlord knocked on the door and said, do you have a candle store in here? I'm like, I swear I don't. He was concerned, but he offered me a space. The former Champaign County Democrats headquarters had been sitting empty for some time. And he said, it needs some work, but it's available. So I said, you know what, I'll give it a shot. Let's see what happens. So I opened that location. That was my first ever brick and mortar journey. And that was August of 21 that opened. And it was the scariest thing I had ever done. What a commitment. I was like, okay, if I couldn't make rent, if sales were slow, what could I sell to make this happen? What can I hawk? I just was, kind of terrified and kind of, prepared for the worst. But, I found that, this community is really supportive of small businesses, so that's a huge thing. I think, small business, you can be as creative as you want to be and be as go-get-em as you want to be, but without a community that supports you, it's really hard to make progress. So I was really fortunate in that. It just kind of kept going and it kept growing, and I realized after about a year into that space that one of the things that we were offering there were these make your own. You can come in and have a glass of wine and make a candle. And we really started to feel the community's need and interest in safe gathering spaces. After you've been in isolation for that long. I mean, you get really hungry for human interaction. We are not solitary creatures. We're not made for that. So, it was, a time that we thought we saw a need and we thought that we could meet that. So, my very small team and I looked at larger spaces to see if we could accommodate more of that. And we found the location that we are in now, which is 29 East Main. It's the old drum shop on the corner of Main and Walnut. So we went from 700 square feet to 3,200 square feet in a year and a half, which was a huge jump, one that I was not prepared for, but we kind of just went for it. We were talking before the panel about how there's really no sound math that you can do that will make that a good idea. But you just kind of go for it because I felt I could feel the need, and I had the energy to do it, and so we just went for it, and it's been fantastic. We've seen growth that we never expected, and it is we've been there for just over a year now in that location, and now we went from just selling candles in store and people coming in to make candles to now wholesaling nationwide. We do a subscription box service monthly and seasonal candles that we ship all over the country, all the platforms, Etsy and all those things. We do custom wholesale as well. And so, it's just been this kind of wild adventure that, the day I got laid off from my job as a nurse, I remember the very real tears that I cried because I thought my whole life was over. And to be sitting here right now, even talking about this is crazy to me. So you never know, it's kind of a leap of faith, but you just never really know where life's going to take you. But anyways, that's the gist of it.
That's amazing. Thank you for sharing. Mila.
So I have an interesting journey, and it has many layers, but I think the passion to do it initially started, you heard about my background in online learning, and I don't know how many of you in the room remember what classrooms were like before computers were in schools, but I was around then, and so I was one of those folks, like emerging technology folks, so I was actually in a classroom twisting the Cat5s and hooking up the computers for the first time. So I had done that for a long time, and it was a new field. So long story short, as I was, getting all these different degrees because it was new, So I was like the first cohort for a doctorate in instructional technology. After I had done all of that, I set, my sights on, maybe I can be a professor for this university and that university. And then I looked back and I had done it all. And I was still really good with technology, but the issue was now I could do it in my sleep. I could talk, even right now, I've got workshops ready, how to integrate technology into the curriculum. And I kept saying, I need to challenge myself more. And I kept thinking, I've always wanted to start a business. And I had a small stationery business back when we lived out east, but I really wanted to do a brick and mortar. And I always thought about that poem, What Happens to a Dream Deferred? And I just never wanted to look back on my life and had not followed one of the biggest, scariest dreams. And I know she talked about that a little bit too. It is very scary. So that was what prompted me to do it. And one of the questions I get asked the most is, why nothing but cakes? I spent a lot of time in the South, and there's a lot of them in the South, and I was always there. And you should have seen me on the airplanes bringing them back home here in Champaign. And one day I was like literally leaning, waiting on my cake, and it said, are you interested in owning a Nothing But Cakes? And I said, sure. And, and then I took out my phone, technology, right? And I applied. But they said, we're not expanding into Illinois. And then I just said, okay, well, I'll just wait and check back next year. And I consistently did that every time I would go and visit family. And I started doing the research, on Nothing But Cakes to see if it was good for me. I spent time here in the Champaign Library. I actually have the book, Starting a Business for Dummies. And it had a couple chapters on franchise, and I really became intrigued with that model. And I think it is an overlooked model that works well, for some up-and-coming business owners. And every year, I'm, writing them, they're saying we're not expanding. And then I want to say it was about 2018, I wrote wrote, just, on a whim. And she said, oh, we are ready to expand. You have impeccable timing. And I said, wait, I do? And I'm like, oh, no, But I had to act calm, right? So I said, oh, my God, I've been trying to do this for such a long time. I can't believe it. And she said, well, what's a long time? And so I told her. She said, well, you should be in our system. I said, oh, trust me, I'm in your system, because I had all the emails. And she said, oh, my goodness, you are. So I think that really helped because they saw that passion. And going into franchising is a different process, and we'll talk about that through some of the other questions later, but it is independently owned and operated. So you really do have to roll up your sleeves and put a lot into it. I think as I get to the end of this journey, I think one of the biggest things for me was the passion behind it was, can I do this? And let me let go of that fear. And I went all in. I quit my day job, but I did it in a very respectful manner, and I think that's always important. I gave them a year notice, 9 months, 6 months, 3 months, 2 months, and still keep in touch with colleagues that I worked with. And then I took that plunge. But I couldn't take it as quick as some people because I really had to have more financial backing to be prepared. So it was literally 2 weeks before opening, and a friend peeked in and said, you sure you opening in 2 weeks? And I said, I sure hope so. And, that was one of the first times I had to accept, people saying, hey, can we come in and help you? And I said, absolutely. And then the pandemic hit, but that's another question, another story. You're going to love that one. But that was my journey. So, everything I learned about Nothing But Cakes came from a background in technology.
Amazing. Thank you. Mickie?
So I was born and raised here in Champaign, Urbana. My family, my parents are my inspiration. My dad is an entrepreneur. He has a jewelry shop next to TJ Maxx. It's called PK Jewelry Repair. Do you know my dad? Okay. So, and he also has a farm in Villa Grove. And my mother had a restaurant in Charleston, Illinois for about 15 years. And so I've worked in restaurants all throughout high school and college. And I went to college in Chicago, got my degree in business, came back home, and took a little break before I decided to go pursue my MBA in Texas. That didn't happen because I'm here. But my dad asked me, he was like, hey, can you help us find a location here in Champaign? And I was like, sure, why not? So I worked with a realtor for almost a year, found our spot, downtown Champaign, 415 North Neal Street. And at that moment, I was like, all right, Dad, found you a spot. I'm going to Texas. And he was like, well, would you like to be the owner of this? Would you like to run this? And I was like, oh, I've been doing this all my life, and why not? And then he goes, well, you need to figure out the license, the permits, everything you need to open a business. And at the time, I was 24 years old, just graduated from college, had no clue what I was doing. And I was like, wow, this is really tough love. So if you guys have kids and want them to be entrepreneurs, show them tough love, because fast forward 6 years later, here we are today, so open, still thriving. And I'm thankful to be part of this community, being able to have a location where people can come together, create memories. A month ago, I hosted a wedding reception. I've seen a proposal in the restaurant. Just stuff like that makes me happy, and not only just putting smiles on people's faces through food. So.
It's amazing. Thank you. Armando?
Well, I was born in Mexico, and I lived most of my life in Chicago. And I started to go to school here. I wanted to become a sociology teacher. So I started going to U of I, and I worked for my family for 18 years. And I had some health issues and had to stay there for 6 months. And then when I decided to come back, it was either to open up my own business or to go back to school. So my fiance and I, she's my wife now, of course, but we would drive around and would always come back to this side of town and always see that little spot. And I would always tell her, all I need is that spot, a small spot like that. That's all I need. And then a month later or so, they took off the signs, they took off, took off everything. And I'm like, wait a minute, it's open. And I mean, I guess, 13 years, 13 years makes a humongous difference in technology, because it was harder back then to Google, the information than it is right now. So it took me a little while, found the information, called the lady, and the lady answered, and she said, well, somebody was supposed to look at it today, but they didn't show up. You want to see it? I can see you in 2 hours. And I said, okay. I saw the place, and I was like, if it's still available. She's like, well, the guy didn't show up, so if you want it, it's yours. I gave her a blank check to look for funds for that check, and then, I started the process, and it was like, I was very, very enthusiastic. I started painting, and then one day, the lady from the health department came and knocked on the door. She's like, hey, how are you? I'm like, great. She's like, what are you doing? And I said, oh, I'm going to have a Mexican restaurant. And he said, oh, have you applied for your permit? And I said, oh, no, I want to fix it up a little bit, just to, make sure I start right. Like, I would suggest you would submit your permit. And I said, well, who are you? She's like, oh, I'm the head of the health department. It takes a month for you to go through the process, to begin the process. And I freaked out, it was like June, I'm already, getting loans in order to get it started and stuff. And then submit the permits and everything, coming up with a menu, and I showed it to my wife, and I questioned. I'm like, every restaurant that we see here is a little bit more Tex-Mex. Maybe I should add, like cheese sauce, and so I don't know, something, people like over here. And she gave me the greatest advice. She said, do your menu. Do your menu, and then if we fail in a year, we'll reinvent ourselves and we'll do something else. But you gotta do what you want to do. And I did, and we opened the doors, and one of the first reviewers, which was hilarious, it was a guy from Smile Politely. I didn't know he was from Smile Politely that night, but it was a little tipsy, and he comes in and he tells my wife, who runs this place? And she goes, oh, the guy outside. And he comes out and he says, are you the owner? And I said, yeah, yes. And he's like, man, those are the best tacos I've ever had. And I'm like, wow, thank you. He walks off, and then on Sunday, that was on a Friday, and on Sunday we get our butts kicked, and it's just over and over and over, people coming in. And then I asked my wife, what's going on? Is there like an event or something like that? And they're like, no, they're saying Smile Politely. And then we read the article, and it starts, I gotta admit, I'm a little tipsy, but I think I found the best Mexican restaurant in town. And then it was just, it started like growing from there. Throughout the years, it's been challenging. If you've ever seen Little Maize, it's 2 rooms in the bathroom, basically. There's no basements, there's no storage, so it was very challenging to do that. But ever since we opened, I always felt like sort of pushed to grow. So we got the second location, which offered a prep kitchen that we desperately needed. And then when we were gonna open the second location, and I saw the kitchen, I'm like, this is not enough for 2 restaurants. So we opened a warehouse where we do all of our prep work. And then after that, they told us, well, guess what? We're finally going to tear down Little Maize after 12 years. And I said, well, I got to find another venue for my staff. And so they offered the Atlanta Union for us. I went into it, and then they told me, you can stay another year if you want. We told you we're going to tear it down, but not for another year. So I found myself with 3 locations, which was very, very interesting. And then, and now finally, they said, we are going to tear it down, and they're going to do it in the beginning of June. So my whole story, my whole journey has been a lot of surprises, a lot of challenges. I do share with everybody the feeling of being, scared, to begin, to grow, to do all the things that a lot of times we find ourselves doing anyways. But at the same time, I do agree that the community of Champaign has been amazing. Everybody's really supportive. They're really, really, you feel the love and you feel the support. So if I think that if I would have done it in Chicago, I would never have the experience that I've had and the blessings that I've had here in Champaign. So I'm very thankful for that.
Thank you. It's amazing. Jenny?
Hi, I'm Jenny. Is this okay? I own The Literary, and I had my first business, when did I start that? In the teens, so it was a while ago, and it was a software startup, and I have absolutely no business in software at all. Like, I should not have done it, I should not have been allowed to do it, someone should have stopped me, nobody did. So I started this software company that was intended to be a platform to help small service providers meet their customers in a way that was beneficial for them. Because I didn't like the way a lot of big platforms, I felt that they took advantage of small business at that time. So long story short, we tried really hard. We had a small, scrappy team. We were working remotely before it was cool. We ended up getting beaten out by market forces. The other groups were just bigger. They were better funded. They had more money and more staff. And so I had to pull the plug on that business, which was super duper hard. But looking back, I learned so much from that failure that weirdly has translated to the literary, which is really fun and where I actually should be doing things, which is not software. The literary I started because I moved here before the pandemic. I was doing that software startup from my office remotely, and I didn't know anyone in town because I spent all my time on the computer doing that business. And then the pandemic hit, and so I still didn't know anybody. So then I'd been living here for 5 years and still hadn't met anyone and had 0 friends, and it was really sad. And so I just got this idea about building a place where people would come together and where we could meet each other again. And again, it was right in the middle of the pandemic, and I was like, oh my God, we have to do this. It would be so fun. I was on fire, just like so psyched about the idea. And got the loan, did the business plan, found the space, and got the team, and just kind of rushed really fast. We went from getting the keys to opening our doors in like 3 months. We opened actually, I think 1 month after Kayla did. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we opened at the same time. We're pandemic babies. Yeah, and then so I was really stoked to open, and then I'm sure Kayla will remember this too, like shortly afterward, they were like, oh my gosh, the pandemic is starting to lift, guys, we're gonna go back to normal soon, and then Delta. And so it didn't go back to normal soon at all, and it was really difficult. It was like 2 weeks after we were, in my memory at least, it was like 2 weeks after we opened our doors, they really started locking down again, and it was so scary. But we survived, and I have learned a huge amount. I've met incredible people. We've tried to grow in response to what the community has told us that they want. We've tried very hard to create that third space concept, which is a place where you can belong outside of home and work, where you can connect with other people over ideas, shared interests, learn something new. And we try to put all of the best things in life in one spot, your books, your mimosas, your brunch, your cup of coffee, it's all there. You don't have to leave. It's just you could live there. Try to keep it all in one spot. And yeah, it's been really, really wonderful. And I'm always touched by the community, as everyone else has said, because when you own an independent bookstore, you are the last place that people think of to go for a book, right? When you are shopping, it's so much easier to get your book from Amazon. It can be at your house in 2 days. They charge you half the price because they can. But the people who come out of their way to come to the literary and who special order books through us especially, it means so, so, so much. And there are so many people who are invested in the community in that way. And it's just wonderful. It's the reason we're still here. And so I'm really grateful to all of you and the whole community for that.
Thank you. So I know you guys as business owners are very aware that owning a business is filled with lots of challenges, but also lots of rewards. So this question is, what are some of the biggest rewards you've experienced as a small business owner in the community, but also what would you say has been the biggest challenge you've faced or maybe you're currently facing? And I'm going to go ahead and start with Jenny this time, if you're ready for it.
Okay.
But yeah, so biggest reward, biggest challenge.
For me, the biggest reward of this is getting to be a part of the community, is getting to meet all of you lovely people, and getting to create, to just be part of your day, to be able to create a place that people want to be, and a place where they feel safe, and a place where they get to learn and grow. And I've met so many incredible people, so many, and so many incredible organizations that we've been able to partner with. And so for me, the big reward is the people. That's why we do it. The biggest challenge for me of small business is having a small team because when you have, we have a very small kitchen. Our kitchen is tiny, and you can only fit so many bodies in that kitchen. And when they get sick, because they work very close together and humans remain human, then we have no staff all of a sudden. And you can't have a deep bench when you have a small business. You can't keep 30 people on the payroll in case, 3 people call out sick at once. And so at those times, it can be very challenging and stressful to find ways to make it work. So we've had to be creative. We've had to run with limited menus occasionally on the weekends to deal with the shortage of staff on those days while we're waiting for our staff to heal up. I take shifts, my general manager takes shifts. We kind of all work together. Sometimes we have to close early, and it makes me very sad, but sometimes there's no choice. But that, I think, for me, is one of the hardest parts about having a small business.
Thank you. Armando?
For me, it's been just the community. The community has been, like I said, I was born in Mexico and I grew up in Chicago. And Chicago is a very segregated city. I think it's more self-segregation more than anything. But you do stick around in the same part of town most of the time, at least when I was growing up. So coming to Champaign and just, feeling the small town, I was born in a small town, I grew up in a small town in Mexico. So, finding people that sort of support what you're doing, I go anywhere I go is usually, I love what you're doing, I love your food. And it's very rewarding because, coming from Mexico, one of the things that I always want to do through my food is just to share my culture. I think, food breaks down barriers. You can imagine how many people have come into the doors with certain attitudes, or whether they're hungry or they're mad or something. They eat something, and then their demeanor changes. They automatically, they're very different. And for me, achieving that, through something that I cook, I think it's amazing. It's just wanting to be a sociology teacher. This is the best thing for me. I'm talking to people, not only my customers, but my employees. I've learned a lot from them, and I feel myself teaching every day whatever I know, but at the same time learning from them. The biggest challenge, I think, it's a little bit more the concept of Mexican food. I think Mexican food, people see it as a cheap food, or something that should be very, very cheap. And when we're dealing with ingredients like the ones that we use, it's very hard to keep it at the price point that people expect. So has become a little bit harder now that everything is rising, prices are rising, but since Taco Bell still has 99-cent tacos, they assume that us as a small business should. We take a lot of pride in what we do, especially trying to do organic handmade tortillas. So I try to explain to people, there's a lady making the tortillas for your tacos, right? And that's an extra expense. So of course, having to explain that or get to have people understand that, it's a little bit of challenge, but at the same time, all I gotta get them is to try take a bite of that taco, And once they take a bite, it's a little bit easier to explain it to them.
Great, thank you. Mickie?
I think one of the biggest rewards is, for sure, to add on what they said, is the community, and not only the downtown community and Champaign Center Partnership, but we're also part of the farmers market in Urbana, and being able to be part of the Urbana community and meeting vendors over there. And I would purchase ingredients from other vendors, so that way, I'm stimulating the economy, and just like Armando said, telling my customers that I'm using fresh ingredients. And it is challenging when customers think that, Thai food should be cheap, because as compared to they think all Asian food, there are some Chinese restaurants that have really cheap, $6.99 lunch. But when they come to my restaurant, they're like, oh, this is very expensive. And I do reassure them, we have a farm, we use fresh produce, we shop at vendors at the Urbana's market. And so, it's stuff like that, that if you are able to engage with your customers and let them know all the hard work that's put into their meals, then I think they'll appreciate more, rather than when they look at the price point and they're just like, whoa. So.
Awesome, thank you. Mila?
So I'm gonna start with the challenges. I think for me, the biggest challenge was opening during a pandemic. And with the tech background, I'm a very linear person, so I had it all planned out. Perfect. And then here comes this pandemic. So that was really scary and challenging. And I think the other thing to think about for small business is that sometimes you hear about all of the different funding that small businesses qualify for that'll help them. But for me, they looked at when I opened and they said, oh, you missed the cutoff. So then I had people who just made assumptions that we were also a part of, all of that wonderful funding that was given to businesses, but I didn't qualify because of a technicality of the day the doors opened. And so that was really sad. But once I got over that, because I was really upset and I had just been making phone calls all day, I just said, I have to get that out of my head because as a small business owner, I've quit my job. I now have to focus on what do I do to make this work? What do I do to make sure that, the business still flourishes? And I will say the most rewarding, and this is a really interesting twist and story, is again the community, because the community really stepped up for small businesses. It was a special Facebook group that came. I also joined the Chamber of Commerce, which I think is really important. And even the Chamber, I kept in touch with them, and they knew the situation with the technicality for me. And they contacted me this year, just like a couple months ago, and they said, hey, we think we found something for you. There's a new grant that just came out for small business owners that did not qualify because of the technicality. And as soon as she called, I looked at the paperwork and I said, yeah, but look at that technicality over there. They were like, just go for it. Went for it. They were like, denied. I was like, you gotta be kidding me. But we picked up the phone, called, I did the appeal process, had to explain, send in a ton of paperwork, and they finally just contacted me just like a good month ago to say that I made it, and so that felt really good, and the first thing I did, I left the bakery and I said, I have to go, and I ran straight to the chamber and just said, you won't believe it, thank you so much. And I think that that's the power of community. The other most rewarding thing for me is what I call you've been bunted. And once I hit a point where I could do those things, it was just really great. So one of the first places I went after the bakery opened and I had, been a little bit established was the Carl Hospital, because they had taken great care of me during my pregnancy. And I was able to surprise the staff that was working that day with cake. I then went to the Carl Auxiliary House, surprised them with cake. I just started thinking, who else can I just say thank you to? And I thought about the pandemic and what it was doing to emergency rooms. So I really got to know the director of the emergency room at that time, and I would just, surprise that staff because they were getting slammed. And for me, that became really, really rewarding because it felt like a blessing was coming to me, and now I was able to do the same, for other people. And I still kind of try to work that into my plan, to this day. So if you have some people that you're suggesting should be bunted, just let me know.
Awesome. All right, Kayla.
I'm going to start with challenges too, because those are the most important things. I think the challenges are kind of what make us successful. They kind of make or break us. And, when I opened up the very first store, what a cool, wild little dream that was. And then, transitioning from that into the larger space and taking on, more than quadruple the space, the bills, managing more customers, a wonderful problem to have. But when all of that happens that quickly, I don't have a background in business at all. I was a nurse and I taught music. So, I'm definitely a little bit more, I'm not linear at all. If you've ever been in Fire Doll, you'll see that.
That's how I was at our workshop.
Yeah. That's where you go get messy, But it really, I found myself in a situation where I had no idea what I was doing. I had a lot of really awesome luck up until a certain point, and then I realized I'm going to have to learn what I'm doing and to be effective and to, it wasn't about me anymore. I had a staff too, so I had to be able to be reliable for them. And, I realized really quickly that I was going to have to be a really aggressive seeker of information, because that's not stuff that just presents itself to you. So, you know, I mean, and even to this day, we've been there for a little over a year now, and you know, we still see growth every day, and it's awesome. But knowing how to take that, be accountable to it, without, letting yourself get spread too thin that you're not able to be there for your customers, not able to be there for your staff, not able to keep the building, in the shape it needs to be. And I mean, all of those little things add up super fast. And, when you run a small business, you're not just running a small business, you're the accountant, you're HR, you are the producer, you are, client services, you are the event coordinator, you do all those hats. It's a lot, and they're all specialties. There are entire departments dedicated to these things in larger businesses, So it's a lot to juggle. So I still, even up till now, I just applied to a scale-up program, just to more continuing education, just so I can figure out as we grow what I can do to be on top of the issues that we're running into. A huge thing with me was managing humans. I'd never managed another human before in my life. And so when you have unique, amazing humans who are supporting this dream of yours coming into your space, and they rely on you, supporting them isn't just giving them boundaries. It is also like seeing the humans that are there supporting your dream, and how can you be there for them? These are all challenges that when I opened that first store, I never thought about that. And you don't think about it until you run into it and you go, oh, that's a thing. Okay, cool. So, that was probably just the rapid learning. I mean, the crash course, that was a huge challenge for me. But it's also the best opportunity. I mean, it's really forced me to be a better human. It's forced me to be a better business owner, so it is a reward in and of itself too, to be challenged in those ways. But, for me, the biggest reward, in fact, it just happened the other day. It brought me to literal tears. One of my staff came around the corner and said, "Oh my God, are you okay?" We had this lovely event in the shop. We oversold. Still don't know how we did that, but we did. More learning. And at one point, I remember sitting if you've ever been in Fire-Doll, our event space is a separate room. We call it the Doll House. And there's a big group of 30-something people in there making candles, and we have a full bar, and everyone's having a little wine, and they're giggling. And I sat away from everyone, and I just listened for a second. And I just heard laughter, and I heard someone getting someone else's Instagram handle that they just met that day in that space. And I could feel, and that word has been said a lot because it's, I think, super important, but I could just hear community being built in that room. And that was something that, it was a really beautiful thing to witness, and it had me in tears. And so, of all the things that we do all day, money's cool, but that is a magical thing. But yeah. So.
Thanks for sharing. So we are running a little short on time, so I do want to ask a couple questions though about business strategy, because I know that a lot of people who come to the library that I meet with, they're in the startup period, or maybe they have a business and they're just not sure how to move forward. And I get a lot of questions specifically about marketing. And I find that a lot of people maybe don't have the time or the money, the resources, the skill to properly market their business. And so I get a lot of questions about that. So I'm going to open this question up to anybody at the panel. But yeah, if you could kind of enlighten us, what marketing strategies have been most successful in attracting and retaining customers to your local business? Now, anybody can answer this, and we can do follow-ups, so you can all speak if you want to. But yeah, any tips or tricks or main kind of platforms you use for marketing that you would like to share with the audience?
I would say this year I did more marketing this year through my POS system. So if you are planning to have a POS system at your business, then see if they have any marketing perks or materials on their website. So I use Toast, and they have email marketing, and I decided to use that this year. And with that, I was able to reach, I think, 2,000 customers on Valentine's Day. And if anybody has placed an order through my restaurant and with their email, then they automatically get that email. So it reached a lot of customers. to the point where I had to turn off my online ordering and my phones that day. So happy Valentine's Day. But for sure, yes, look into your POS company because they do offer great services for marketing.
So yes, the email lists are amazing. One strategy I used even before the bakery opened was giving people an opportunity to taste the cake. So I used to actually drive to another town that had a Nothing But Cakes, purchase a bunch of cake, and then drive back to Champaign and just started going around saying coming soon so people could actually taste the cake. And I think that that's been really helpful for me, just to be out in the community and giving people that opportunity for a first bite.
Anyone else want to chime in?
For me, I think you also have to be willing to adapt. You know, when I opened, you know, it was word of mouth was humongous for me. You know, that was one of the best things. You know, everybody was doing the advertising for me, and for a very long time, I thought, you know, I'm set. You know, everybody's doing the advertising for me, and then, you know, of course, a lot of other restaurants started opening. You know, there's a lot of movement. You know, I didn't realize that after 4 years, you know, a lot of my client base graduates. So how do you reconnect with the new class that's coming in? So Google Ads has been, you know, one of the things that I've used lately, and it's actually helped me a lot because it sort of like reconnects me with a lot of the customers and also keeps me, you know. With the new classes or the new people, you know, Champaign, I didn't realize this, but even locals move away, come back, and that type of thing. So being fresh on people's memories, you know, through the Google Ads has helped me out a lot.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I was going to say too that one thing that we do that we found to be really helpful for us is that we partner with other businesses and other worlds just to get more people into the shop, even if they're not there for candles, even if they've never heard of us before. So, you know, for instance, we do live music, and we partner with local, like Undertow Music is a local, you know, collective that puts on events, artists all over the country. And when we partner with them, they throw their event in our space. We give them the space for free. We run the bar, but that brings in about 30 to 40 people that have probably never been in there before. We do candlelight yoga, and we partner with Green Yoga Spa for that. That brings people in who have never been there before. And we also donate a lot to events in the community. Not only does that help your community, and you can give items to be auctioned off and raise funds for really important things, but also every time you do that, you know, if you're in a live auction, they're like, Fire Doll Studio, or, you know, you're on a live auction or a silent auction, and all these people are going by and seeing a picture of your products or seeing your product on the table, and, you know, chances are a lot of those people have never heard of you before, and so they're going, I didn't even know that place existed. So we found that to be really helpful as well.
Another quick strategy question, because this is also a really big one, very, very important for small businesses. Many small businesses struggle to find and retain qualified employees. What strategies have you used for building a strong team? And I'll open this up to anybody who'd like to jump in on this.
For me, the team for me is everything in our business. I try very, very hard to create a work environment that people want to be in. You know, we're all gonna have hard days, but if you want to be at your job because you're feeling supported, because you are doing work that's important, because you're part of a team, then that you feel good about it, right? You're doing something really good, and it lights you up, and it helps you glow, and it helps you go when things are tough at work. And then that little bit of spark, that little bit of joy gets passed on to the customers. And then the customers are taking that home, and then they're feeling a little bit better and spreading that around the world. Just a little bit, just a tiny bit better, but it means something. So we try really hard to create an environment where people want to be. And our team is full of like the greatest human beings possibly on the entire planet, like in one place, and it's wonderful. We operate as people say as a family, but truly we really support each other and love each other and work together to create something for others, and it's wonderful.
I'm actually really happy because, I'm not allowed to say it, but one of my employees, she's worked for me 13 years, and she's going to open her own business. And because since Little Maize was closing, I gave her the opportunity to stay with me and keep on growing with me or do something on her own. And she said, I want to do something on my own. And it was a bittersweet moment because, it's like, somebody that you've depended for so many years says that, but at the same time, it was a very proud moment for me because it's just, I understand that, everybody that is part of my group, they're supporting me in what I'm doing. So trying to teach them everything that I can or learn from them everything that I can, I think goes a long way. A lot of times, people just want to feel listened to or be part of something. And I always give them a shirt and I say, I put a lot of effort into what I do with my business. So you should be proud, when you wear that shirt. And a lot of times they say, well, somebody invited me a cocktail or somebody invited me a food or I got a discount. And that for me, it's amazing that they feel part of a team, part of something that is important and that they're proud of working in. For me, I think that's a key because then everybody, works harder. They work for a purpose. And that is hard to translate, but at the same time, it's beautiful when it happens.
And I was going to say, when I first started out, I worked for a while at Southwest Airlines back in the day, the fun airline, cartwheels in the airport. So I thought a lot about that when I was hiring, and I was really looking for people, especially in the front of house, that really had that over-the-top personality. I also talked to people about, for me, it's less transactional and more conversational. So I look for people who enjoy having conversations. Yes, there are some people that want to come in, they want their lemon buntlet, and they need to go. But there are some people who want to think about the flavors, maybe try something, hear a little dialogue. We want to know why they're there. So I look for people that genuinely have that. In terms of strategy with resources, I would recommend looking into Career Plug. I love it. And it's a system where it will put your jobs out on all of the job boards. So you just put it in one place. You save your templates. I'm linear again. I spent that time to set up all of the letters. And so now, like right now while I'm here, people are actually getting responses right now based on how they responded to questions. So I have about 3 jobs out on the board right now, and people are literally right now signing up for interviews. And so then the harder part comes when people are coming in, really thinking about, is it a good fit for the culture, that you're nurturing, within your business. So I think that that's one of the big things for me. And in the bakery, I will say that I get to know everyone and really kind of develop, a good relationship in terms of their schedules too. And this is the one thing I didn't want to forget to say. It was something that I was told not to do, but I tried it anyway, and I really do think it works. When I interview people, one of the things I say is, tell me when you're available. Here are our hours of operation. What kind of shift works for you? Morning or night or afternoon? And I write it down. And some of them get really detailed. Monday, 10 to 12, Thursday, I literally write it down. And people typically get the exact same schedule that they asked for, because that was always my pet peeve when I was working, different jobs right out of college. Like, maybe I don't want to work 2 to 10 p.m., give me my perfect schedule. And that literally works. And as I was coming over here, some of my employees were saying, make sure you tell them about the flexible schedules, because it really is something different, and they said they really appreciate it. It does take a little bit of work, but it works.
And I know I did want to leave some time for questions. I know we're running short on time, but I think I do have to ask kind of our final question. So what one piece of advice would you give aspiring entrepreneurs looking to launch their own small business? I'm going to start with Kayla, and I want everybody to answer this question.
I think I said this before, but I'll say it again because it really is, I think, super important, is just to be an aggressive seeker of information and inspiration. I think that, being humble and knowing that you're going into this thing, not knowing everything is awesome. And that when you carry that spirit with you and you're always willing to learn, that information is out there, and you can learn it in so many different ways, whether it's having a conversation with someone whose business you admire. Hey, how did you tackle this thing? I have a question about something. Ask people, get on the internet, look for courses in the community, and just really, really seek that information out, and don't be afraid to go out and see what other people are doing and get inspired, because I think inspiration is pretty powerful, and there's nothing about this that's easy, and so that energy comes from inspiration, and once that tank runs empty, it's a lot harder to do it. So I would say just aggressive seeker of information and inspiration for sure.
And I thought of two things. One, from a human perspective, I would say make sure that your family is on board. My husband and kiddo are there, so I want to make sure that they're supportive. I made sure my mom was on board, people that were close, that would be that network. And then the other piece is, again, it might be the linear part of me, but I do 100% believe in a business plan. And when I say I had a business plan, I had a business plan. I had that section where I had visited any place where I would put food in my mouth and had tasted it and had that whole section ready. And just everything from what would you do with marketing. So I would say definitely go to your local library and, get those books, those resources, and really work that plan. Don't underestimate that. And of course, save up and have that funding, because you're going to have those unexpected things that happen.
I would say don't be afraid to ask other business owners for their opinion, advice, or input. Like I said, I was 24 years old when I started the restaurant, and my dad told me sink or swim, so I couldn't ask him. So I had to go ask everyone else that I knew that owned a business, a bar, restaurant, anything in the industry. It is scary, but they're willing to share, and I am too. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to come to the restaurant or after this. And also, don't forget to have a work-life balance. I'm only off on Tuesdays. Today's my only day off, so thanks, Lauren, for inviting me. But having that balance will maintain your sanity, and also don't forget your employees' work-life balance. They have a life outside of work as well, so having a flexible schedule makes them happy, and they feel supported. You're having a very positive environment at work.
I would say don't be afraid to be afraid. I told had a conversation with my employee this morning, and I saw her eyes, and I'm like, "Are you scared?" And she's like, "Yeah." I'm like, "You gotta get used to that, because in order to do what we do, it's like, I think we all do something every day that scares us, whether it's making decisions, or the decisions are sometimes really tough, but at the same time, the more you do it, the more you build a muscle, and the more you react better, the more you have strength to do it. And a lot of times, we try to keep that being afraid part, on check. But that's part of it. I mean, doing a small business is not easy, but it's really, really rewarding once you're able to do something that you're passionate. And if you're passionate, it'll show in anything you do, whether it's food, whether it's candles, whether it's anything that any of us are doing. I think that one of the things that I see, when everybody's talking, is just the passion and just the enjoyment. Of course, we don't want to scare you and tell you the scary parts of it, but at the same time, it's part of it. It'll build you better. It'll make you grow. And then once you're on the other side, you're going to look back and you're like, wow, that was the thing that made me strong.
And to that point, I would say don't be afraid to fail, because you learn everything when you fail. And every day, I fail in some small way or sometimes some big way, and you turn those into learning opportunities, and you use those to launch you to the next thing. So I think it's really important to talk about your failures and to use those as catalysts for growth. I would also say trust your gut 100%. Make sure that you're listening to yourself, your deepest self, and following that. And also do your research. Make sure you know what you're getting into, and where you're going, and how you're going to get there. I think those are the biggest takeaways for me.
Thank you so much. And I know we're a little over on time, but if you don't mind, I'm going to see if we have any questions here in the audience. Sure. If anybody has any questions for our panelists, we can take a few quick questions. All right, I'm going to come down to you.
something for dummies. Well, I can remember the name of it. Miss Fuller.
Small business, what is that?
The name
Oh,
of
the book earlier, from the library?
Yes.
Oh, that one was called Small Business for Dummies. Yes.
Yeah,
That's a good
We have that
series,
book here
you
at the
all.
library. Yes.
That really is a good series. If you're an up-and-coming author, that's a good series to write for.
Does anybody else have any questions? All right, come over this way.
Hi, mine is general around securing a location. How did you go about doing it, and what are some of the challenges you faced?
Anybody want to take this question, securing a location?
Well, my location was it sort of picked me, but like, so when people see my location, I wish that I would tell you, I could tell you that I planned that it was going to be small, low overhead and everything, but that's what I could afford. So honestly, you have to be realistic on what you're able to afford. Because for us, we were able to connect with the local community, so when the students left, the local community showed up and they kept us strong. But one of the things that I did know before getting into it was that when students left, business went down. So you need to be aware of what your customer base is, and then plan for that as well.
And also, if you can ask someone in your same field what they have in their space, that would be super helpful. Like, I did not know how much storage you need for a restaurant, and I did not know like exactly what that your menu is based off of the equipment that you have. You can only cook what you have the ability to make in your space, and there's just a lot of little things that if I had known, I would have changed my space before I started. Like, for example, if you've ever been to the Literary, you can't see the front door from the bar. But if you could, I could have less staff on shift at that time, and then I could have less labor, and that would be pretty cool for things like overhead, which can make or break your business. So stuff like that, if you can ask somebody who's in that space, that would be really helpful.
And I would say for me, I knew that location was really important, and with me knowing that the business wasn't as well known in central Illinois, I wanted to be in a location where people could see the building from the street. So I worked with a team that helps me look at different places in the area, and I'm really bad with directions. So I had a friend that grew up here to kind of like go with me and drive around, and we really looked at places. And I really love where I am now because I feel like it's just a lot of traffic. And also for location, one advice that I was given by another business owner was be careful of attaching yourself to a place because of a really amazing anchor store, because she had done that, and she said, and little did she know, like 6 months later, the anchor store left, and then she became the only person in this one kind of like isolated place. So I think that's when it's really important to work with people that can see what's coming soon in the area. And I knew Costco was coming, so I thought that would be a draw.
You have a question? Okay. Over you.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for sharing your stories. I admire you guys a lot more than I did when I came in. And my main question is, how do you stay motivated when you have hard days?
Anyone want to jump in on this one?
I find my family, my son. I started this being just engaged with my wife. My son came in 6 years ago, and being able to see him grow in business, it's amazing for me just because I'm able to have him come anytime he wants. And he, like during the pandemic, it was amazing because I was able to socialize him in a controlled setting where all my employees were able to say hello to him and stuff like that. But for me, that's my that's my motivation. But at the same time, also being able to share my culture through my food. That's a big passion of mine, because I do know that I can change perspectives through food. And I think that there's a lot of conversations that I've been able to have with a lot of people that think very differently than me. And then once they share a plate of food with me or with the restaurant, then their attitude may change a little bit. And that drives me a lot. Because small business is hard, but at the same time, those are the type of rewards that keep me going and that keep me strong when things get hard.
I would add that something that's really helpful for me, staying motivated is, when days when I go into the store and maybe say, sales are weird, we get that weird, we're on the Hallmark calendar, so between Valentine's Day and like Mother's Day, it's a little weird for us, but, I find that a lot of purpose, being motivated by finding purpose in like, me showing up and being fierce at work today means, my employees are going to see, strength in times that are difficult, and give them, lift them up a little bit. Knowing that just being a woman in a prominent downtown location, I've had so many women come in and say, I didn't think something like this was possible, but I see you doing it, and it makes me feel like I can do that. And so then I say, oh, well, it's not just about me anymore, is it? Right? So when you can do something for somebody else and you remove yourself from the equation, it feels a lot bigger than you, and that can be really motivating. Just knowing that you're playing a small part in something, you're one of the moving parts that's keeping a community going. That those sorts of points of accountability can be really motivating for me, at least.
And I would just say, for the motivation level, think about making sure that you select something that you absolutely love. Because even on some of the toughest days, I'm still in there like, this is amazing. I still can't believe I did this. I need to pinch myself. And these are days when, you may have employees that are unable to make it in, or a big holiday. Like for many of us, we were just talking about this, graduation and Mother's Day is falling on the same weekend. So that means a lot of employees need to be off for graduations, but I think that if you just kind of have that grit and excitement about it, you just see it as something that you can easily overcome and just work on that plan.
Thank you. All right, so I know you were first. We'll just have to keep it brief, okay?
Yeah, hi. I especially need to ask from the food panelist who is from food background. So how to find out a cost-effective raw material for baking stuff, or like a good local material available, like how to find out that?
I've been in the food game for a very short time, so you guys will have a lot more to say about it, but you just have to do your research. For me, you have to dig in with your distributors, get those relationships, and kind of build from there.
I would say also, it depends on what you're doing, the structure that you're doing. Baking. Mine is more of a Mexican restaurant, but my situation with the Little Maize was that I didn't have anywhere to store. So I had to get somebody, a company that was local that could deliver to me twice a day. But then when I started growing, then I started venturing more into, of course, Costco, the big ones, Costco, PFG, those type of companies will have better pricing, better services. But the only thing is, you gotta adapt. You gotta make sure that what works best for you, through searching for information, as she said. That's one of the best things. And every rep will sit down with you and go through the prices with you. And like everybody has said, if you guys have any questions, I don't think any of us or any people in business would turn you away if you have any questions.
I would say definitely research with all the distributors, like the salespeople. They will sit down with you and go through lists of items that you need. Also check in with your local grocery stores that carry them. I work with 3 Asian grocery stores here in town, and I order a lot. Since I order a lot, they give me a discount, so they might be willing to do that with you too.
I'm going to take your question. There was one more, and then that'll have to be it for our questions, but
Gratitude for you guys sharing your stories very much. One of the things that scares me the most is trying to secure financing. Do you do it through mastermind groups? Do you only do it through business planning and going to the banks? What would you say is your best options for getting financing for the prospective businesses?
it's a difficult question.
It
Who
is.
wants to tackle it?
It's one of the things that scares me about.
It's the number one
Yeah.
most asked question for people who come here to the library.
Yeah, well, financial literacy is a real learning curve, I think, in the small business world. I know for me, I thought I had a loan in place when the first location opened, and it ended up falling through kind of at the last second, but I had already signed a lease, and I went, oh my God, what am I gonna do? I sold a truck, a couple guitars, a keyboard, it was a thing, but as I went on, one thing that I would say is that, taking care of things like credit, keeping a good credit history, a good credit health, and making sure that when you get to a point where you are applying for financing, that you're set up for success. And avoid like predatory lines of credit, because those things have almost destroyed me multiple times, and I learned that the hard way. You'll run into these places that will make lines of credit really easy to access, and it's really, really tempting, especially when you're starting out, and they'll sell it to you. So I would say just be wary of those things.
For my first business, I got angel investors. I did VC funding and stuff and had to do pitch decks and all that stuff, and that was a very different thing. This business, I got a bank loan, and I would recommend going to your small local banks for that, because they're more invested in your community. I think that they're more willing to negotiate with you on your rates and things like that.
I want you to put on your calendar June 18th. We do have a workshop here at the library called Banking and Financing for Your Small Business. So we have Tristan Brown and Bryce Hutchcraft are going to be here. So we have a commercial lender and also Justine Peterson. They do SBA loans, but they're going to go over just credit, banking, health, getting a bank account for your business. But they will talk different financing options available to business owners. So I definitely recommend, if you can make it. We will tape it though if you don't make it. But yeah, that's something we're asked about all the time. So I recommend if you can make the workshop, you do. Yeah. So all right, we had one last question and then wrap things up.
Thank you guys for coming tonight. My question is, do you have any systems that you can speak on that are built into your business that help you make those business decisions, whether that's how to change your menu or when to expand, when to change locations to a larger one, something like that? Do you have any systems that you guys currently use?
Well, I didn't have any systems when I started, so that was the hardest part. But one of the things that has helped me out the most is that systems. Growing the business was more. I joke because I always felt pushed, because everybody were asking, when are you gonna get a bigger store? When are you gonna get a bigger store? I think the thing that I'm concentrating right now the most. I don't want to keep on growing if it's not in a healthy way. So systems is a humongous part of it, whether it's like hiring, training, just running the day-to-day things. For me, I've had really key people in positions that have helped me not worry about the small details. But at the same time, I still want to grow. I still believe in my business, and I think that moving forward, the only way that I want to do it is have everything in place. One thing that I wish that I would have done is work for some type of corporate restaurant to learn all of those things, right? But now I'm searching for everything or anything. So in the beginning, I wanted to be a teacher, not a business person. And now I really, really am concentrating on being a business person, because it's a beauty, it's an art in itself, but at the same time, it's very important if you want to keep, be in business.
Oh my gosh, systems, starting a business is starting systems. That's all it is. Like, you have to observe, you have to iterate quickly, and you have to rely on the people who are working with you and their experience as well. Because they'll tell you where things are not working if you have open lines of communication with the people who are helping you build your dream. You can easily identify those places when they feel comfortable telling you about them. You can pivot quickly, and then eventually you can write them down. I haven't gotten there yet, but eventually I'm going to write all of my systems down, and it's going to be a very good feeling.
Okay, I think that's it. If you guys have any other questions, as they said, ask them. Ask these business owners, and you can see that they love sharing this information with you. You can also come here to the library. We have lots of sources to do market research. You can book a one-on-one with me. We can talk about any questions you have about business. But I want to thank this amazing panel. Can we give this panel a round of applause? Okay. And thank you guys for coming this evening. Thank you to Jenna here from the CCP. It's National Small Business Week, so go to their businesses, support their businesses. Go get a taco, go get a book, go make a candle, have some bun cakes, and go get some lardnar, because that's my favorite thing at Sticky Rice. Support small business. It's so important in this community. But thank you so much. Have a great evening.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, guys.